Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli. Welcome out to the shop for a brand new video. And man, I've got a good one for you today. In today's shop, we're going to talk about a little rigging technique on a bait that has caught so many fish for me, especially in situations when the bass are eating crawfish, okay? And this one I like to call the ultimate crawfish rig, all right? Now, before we get into this juice, and this is going to be juice, let me tell you, let's talk about bass eating crawfish, okay? Bass love crawfish. And, you know, the best example I can give to you is the way people eat seafood. The way people eat crawfish or crabs or lobster. It's that kind of similar situation for bass. They love it. They go out of their way for it. It's a high source of protein. It's an edible forage, which means there's not a lot of danger to the fish when it eats that prey. And last but not least, they're readily available, okay? I can't remember a place that I've ever fished where there are not crawfish as part of the biomass of what those fish consume, right? So it's a large part of their diet, okay? So crawfish are important. The second thing is that most times when guys throw lures that imitate crawfish, they're using like one of three things, okay? They're using probably one of the best crawfish imitators ever created, a skirted jig, okay? So they're using a skirted jig. Number two, and I'll just steal a crankbait from my son's section, they're going to fish a crawfish colored crankbait, okay? And that's a good crawfish imitator. And last but not least, for most guys fishing a crawfish style bite, you know what they're going to use? They're going to use a soft plastic crawl, right? They're going to use some kind of soft plastic crawl, you know, rigged to hop on the bottom. A chigger crawl is a great example of that. And for sure, they're good crawfish imitators. A jig, a crankbait, and a plastic crawfish are good crawfish imitators. But I have one that's better than that. And I have a rig that I make that really mimics the posture of a crawfish. It mimics the way the crawfish moves, right? The way that it actually pulses backwards. It's the perfect size. You could dial in the colors, and it's something different than what everybody else is throwing. You know, the thing that makes this ultimate crawfish rig so appealing, and the reason I think I've done so well with it, is it's different. It's a little different movement, a little different action. It kicks up silt and debris. We're going to see this as I rig it. And it's just different. It looks like a crawfish, acts like a crawfish, tastes like a crawfish. We're going to talk about that in a second, without being the normal baits that everybody throws, okay? So let's get into it. And this is a bait that I call the ultimate crawfish rig. Let's start with the bait, okay? Let's start with the bait. And for the lure, for the ultimate crawfish rig, we're going to use a hog-style bait, okay? A hog-style bait. And I'll pull one out. This happens to be the Berkeley PowerBait 4-inch Power Hog. But a lot of companies, almost every company out there, makes that style lure, right? Of course, you know the brush hog, and every other company has a hog-style bait. Size-wise, I really feel like you want to mimic the size of the crawfish in that fishery. So a 3-inch, a 4-inch, this is my favorite, 4-inch, this is the 4-inch Power Hog. So a 3-inch, a 4-inch, or a 5-inch in places that have big crawfish are the perfect sizes. Okay, I know the first thing you're saying to yourself and you're thinking is, that's a hog-style creature bait. That doesn't look like a crawfish. Guys, listen to me. As we start to make these modifications, we are going to create the ultimate crawfish imitator with this hog-style lure, okay? So number one, hog-style lure. This is the 4-inch Power Hog. I prefer colors that are natural, that imitate the crawfish, as my base colors for the bait. So green pumpkins, black and blues, watermelons, browns. But this, for sure, guys, is my favorite. This is green pumpkin candy. And I said base color because the last thing we're going to do to this bait is we're going to add some color modification to really dial it in. But for your base colors, when you're picking soft plastic, pick something that's natural, something that looks like a crawfish, okay? Green pumpkin candy, perfect. All right, so we've got our bait. Next thing is we need some components for rigging it. And we're going to rig this bait Nico-style or weight it wacky style, okay? A little different terminology depending on where you're from or how you talk about the bait. But we're going to rig this lure weight it wacky or weight it Nico style, okay? So we want those same components as we go to rig this ultimate crawfish rig, okay? So we want just a little wacky hook, weedless or non-weedless depending on the cover. I like anywhere from a number 1 all the way up to a 2/0. But honestly, that size right there, which is a 1/0, is perfect. 1/0 wacky hook is perfect for this ultimate crawfish, especially on a 4-inch bait, okay? So we've got our wacky hook. We need just a little wacky weight, a 1/16, an 1/8, a 3/16. They're all good sizes, even up to a 1/4. But I really, really like that little 1/8 ounce wacky weight. A nail style weight. Doesn't really matter what kind. This is the kind that has a little bulb of weight that sticks out. I like that because it's going to give you a little bit more bottom contact after we rig it, and I'm going to show you that in a second. And then last but not least, I've had it in my hand the whole time, just a wacky tool. A tool that we're going to be able to put on an O-ring. You can use the plier style wacky tool as well for your O-bands, whichever one you like. We'll just use the regular O-ring for this example. You need that as far as this rigging system. Okay. All right. Now let's start putting together this ultimate crawfish rig. We're going to go back to the bait. On the Berkeley PowerBait lures, they have built-in like action keepers. We want to break all those away. It's the first thing we're going to do, okay? So look where those legs are connected to these arms, and we want to just pull that off. And there's little pieces of plastic tab. And then on the arms themselves, they're linked together. So we want to pull that together. So we just unleash the action on those center tentacles, okay? And really, as we rig this, you're going to see that those center tentacles, look at them. That's really going to look like the antenna, right, of the crawfish. And if you look at a crawfish, right, he's got his pincers. He's got the antenna, those real long antenna that stick out like an alien. That's going to look like that, okay? So we broke apart our action. All right, next thing we're going to do is on those hog flappers, those big, thicker hog flappers. And again, no matter what brand you're using, they all have those big flappers. We're going to modify these flappers to make them look like the crawfish pincers, the crawfish arms themselves. And this one's super easy, guys, because all we're going to do, literally, is we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut a V into that flapper to change it into a crawfish arm, okay? So we're going to get our flapper and literally just make a V cut. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? You can see that. Create it just a little cut in the arm, okay? Do it on the other side. Here's my flapper. They don't even have to match. One could be bigger than the other. Cut it again. Look at there. That one's even a little more pronounced. I just made that flapper look like a crawfish pincer, okay? All right. So now we've got our bait really modified to the way we want it. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our O-ring. So you can do it by hand. Of course, you can use the little pliers with that style O-ring, or the good old regular black O-ring. Okay, I think this is a 6mm O-ring. The way this tool works is we're going to just put it on the body, and I want to put this down to where that worm sac or the fat part of the body plastic sticks out, and just use my fingers and I can get that and roll it down to exactly where I want it positioned. That's kind of perfect. I just want it right there about on the middle of the body, okay? The middle of that egg sac, okay? All right, we got that one done. Next, we're going to get our nail weight. And again, guys, I'm not picky on that thing. A 1/16, an 1/8, a 3/16, even a 1/4, tungsten, lead, whatever. Use a nail from a hardware store if you want to. And we're going to put that in the head of the bait, okay? So you remember, this is a hog-style bait. Most guys, when they Texas rig it, the hook is gone in the head. We're not doing that. We're actually going to put our weight in the back, in the head, okay? So you can also get a little dab of super glue and put some glue on the tip of that nail before you put it in. In this case, I'm just going to show you how to do it. And we're just going to make sure that as that nail goes in, we just want that thing nice and straight, okay? So now our nail weight is in the head of the bait, okay? It's in the head of the bait. A lot of times in really clear water, what I'll do is if this weight is lead or tungsten and it's shiny, I just get a regular Sharpie, guys. You don't even need a specific marker, just a regular Sharpie. And I'll just get this entire nail weight in the back. And I want that thing I want to dull it down, right? I just want to dull it down. That's the key. So black Sharpie can do it. And now I've just blended that weight in with the bait, right? Because listen, crawfish don't have any shiny silver on them, right? We want to really make this the ultimate crawfish bait. We're trying to mimic a crawfish. All right, so we've got our weight in the head. We've got our O-ring on the fat part of that body. And if you look at it, it's about at the halfway point. And last but not least, we're going to rig it. And when we rig this bait, this is a key part of the rigging, is the positioning of the hook and the way that the pull point pulls the bait. Remember, in this ultimate crawfish rig, we're getting this lure. We're going to get this lure to look and act exactly like a crawfish, okay? So when we rig our hook under that O-ring, like a wacky rig, like a Nico rig, we want to make sure that our pull point and our hook point is facing the correct way, which is up and back toward us, okay? So, when I go under that band, I want that point of the hook and where it's going to the line to face backwards, to face back toward the tip of the rod, right? I don't want to put that hook in this way because now my pull point is the wrong way. It's opposite. I want that pull point to face toward the rod tip, toward the back of the bait, okay? So we're just going to do our normal wacky rig. And again, this is just a 1/0. This one's got a little weed guard on it, but you could use whatever kind of wacky hook you want. We're just going to go into the body of the bait, under that O-ring, and there's what we got, okay, when we end up. Now, it's so key, guys, to rig it that way because we want that bait to move backwards. We want it scooting backwards. We want it in that defensive position moving backwards. And by having the hook point facing toward our rod tip or toward the back of the bait, right? Not away from it, toward it this way, it's going to have the correct movement. All right, last but not least, I'm going to show you the last thing I do to doctor this bait up, and then we'll get into the movement of this bait and why it's the ultimate crawfish rig. All right, last but not least, guys, you heard me say it. I want to make this thing look like a crawfish. So the last thing that I do is I like to add a little bit of color to the pincers of this bait. Remember, we made those little cuts in the flappers. So then we're going to get whatever you feel like that color is that dials in the crawfish. Orange, red, blue, right? Green, whatever that color is. If you're looking at the crawfish and you're seeing they're more red, use red. If you see a lot of blue in them, use blue. Or many times the orange for me is the perfect color. And I'm going to come in with this green pumpkin natural based colored hog, and I'm just going to put a little tip of color on there. A little bit of orange on that pincer, a little bit of orange on that pincer. It's hard to see with this green pumpkin candy bait, but I've added just a pinch of color to really now dial it in to look like a crawfish, okay? All right, that's the last rigging thing for us. So now I really want you to get a look at why this thing's the ultimate crawfish rig. If I just hold it in my hand, I think you get a good idea of the profile of that bait, right? It's the shape of a crawfish. It's moving, it's going to move backwards. We're going to see that in a second. The pincers are big and up. In the middle of the pincers, there's your antenna that are free floating, okay? And because the weight is in the back, as we work this bait, and I do a lot of, like, I let it get to the bottom, hits the bottom, because that weight is in the back, it makes a little puff of smoke, and then I just start to make it appear like a crawfish, right? Remember, the ultimate crawfish rig is mimicking the movement of that crawfish. Watch a crawfish in the environment. Just Google it. Google how a crawfish moves on the bottom. And you're going to see that he pulses like toof, 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 and then he stops. And then he pulses, toof, 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 and then he stops. But he's always moving backwards, right? So as we pull it, remember that pull point's so important. I just tip my rod just like the crawfish would pulse. So it hits the bottom, and I toom, 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 and let it fall. Follow my slack back down. Toom, toom, toom. Follow my slack back down. And when I do that, look at this crawfish, guys. Look at this. Ready? Hits the bottom, initial fall, boom. Then I move it, ting, 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 and it goes doo, doo, doo. And when I stop, boom, it settles back down, makes a little puff of smoke on the bottom, and it's back in that defensive position. And I do that all the way back to the boat, or as long as I'm in the zone of the fish, okay? Guys, I'm not taking anything away from a skirted jig or a crawfish colored crankbait or even a Texas rigged crawfish. But without a doubt, the action of this bait, the way that it moves backwards, the way that it puffs as you twitch it, the way that that weight kicks up a little debris, its positioning, its claws, its antenna, this is probably the best crawfish bait I've ever fished in my life. And it's different from what everybody else is fishing. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm really excited for you to try this because I believe it is the ultimate crawfish rig and it's the ultimate crawfish imitator. Give this one a try. I think you're gonna get more bites. Guys, if you like what you're hearing on these shop videos, do me a favor, stop right now, mash that subscribe button. Subscribe to my channel. We're gonna send you a notification for a new video dropping every single week. If you're already a subscriber, do me a favor, tell your friends about Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We're here to help you learn a little bit more and hopefully catch more fish. I hope you enjoyed that one. It's the ultimate crawfish rig. Bye.